right, can everyone hear me? Perfect. Welcome to United Astronomy Clubs of New Jersey. We are once again here in Jenny Jump State Forest in Hope, New Jersey. So while I see there's a couple people who need to file down, find a place, remember to retrieve those comfy folding chairs from your car or whatnot. I do want to welcome not only everyone who is joining us here, but also online, because that is right, we do live stream these to both YouTube and Twitch. So if you're ever at home on a Saturday night at around 8 p.m. and looking for something to do, you can always join us online, learn something, say hi in chat. We always love to see people there and answer any questions to the best of our ability. Right. In addition, I would encourage everyone to check out our website, uacnj.org. It's where you can find not only a list of all our upcoming and past talks for this year, but also information on things like our member clubs, because we are a club made up of other clubs. And one of the easiest ways to get into astronomy is to actually join your local club, because not only are they going to have those fun telescopes and everything close to you, but they're also going to have those tips and tricks. Sir, don't run away with my chair. That is actually my chair. It has a use. I do monitor stream over there, so yeah, unfortunately it is a bring your own chair sort of event. Back to where I was saying, local clubs have tips and tricks for viewing in your area, because the tips and tricks I know for out here in Warren County, New Jersey, aren't always the most useful for people who might live in places like New York City or Scranton. In addition, follow us on our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram. We have a Discord server. They're all great places not only to get your questions answered, but also if you have any like astrophotography images or whatnot, or any cool, fun space events in the area, that's a great place to share and let us know about them. With that, since it looks like for the most part we are all settled down here, it's time for the safety briefing. It is inescapable. I'll go over it at the end, because there's always a few who think they can escape it by sneaking in halfway through. Anyone here, if you need to use the restroom, that is the porta potty in back. It is big, it is blue. When it gets dark, it is illuminated by red for ease of finding. Speaking of getting dark, it is a state park. It does, in fact, get dark. I believe we're in a new moon phase right now. So it's going to actually be quite dark, despite New York City's best efforts. So knowing this, for anyone driving, we are using our headlights. We enjoy not getting run over, and I'm sure everyone enjoys not having the medical bills of getting run over. That being said, any flashlights, cell phone lights we might be using to watch where we're stepping in the dark, we do ask you to try and keep those lights pointed towards the ground, because we don't need to be blinded by that latest, greatest 100,000 lumen monstrosity from Amazon. It's quite not fun. We also have a museum and gift shop area, of which I have someone volunteering to man today, so feel free to go check out things like our meteorite display and all that fun stuff. After the presentation, when it actually does get dark, each of those sheds you saw when you came in houses its own telescope. The ones with the roof rolled off are open and have a volunteer manning them. I believe we also have a couple of our volunteers bring their own personal scopes. Do feel free to go up and ask what they're viewing, and if you can, depending on what they're doing, because I think at least one of them's doing astrophotography, whether you can look through the scope. They'll let you know what they're doing and go from there. So, knowing all of that, you're not here to listen to me blabber on for forever. You're here to listen to Walt Windish talk about astronomy in New Zealand, which that's not the screen. I thought it was on a different screen.
There we go. Oh, that's loud.
Yes, the speaker last week was talking very quietly.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris will adjust that shortly. There we go. All right. Walt Windish has been interested in astronomy since he saw the Pleiades as a Boy Scout. He bought his first telescope in 1985, just in time to see Halley's Comet. Walt is a member of the North Jersey Astronomical Group and the Rockland Astronomy Club, and he's been volunteering here at Jenny Jump for over 20 years. And with that, here's Walt.
Okay. We've been saying for over 20 years for the last 10 years, but that's a whole nother Oprah.
I figured you kept 20 years for a reason.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm not going to jinx us by saying this is shaping up to be what could be one of the best observing nights of the summer. I won't say that, but I'm glad I'm here. How many folks are camping out? Great. Excellent weekend. Congratulations. Well, tonight I'm going to try something different. I a lot of times I pick stuff like the life and death of stars and James Webb updates, but I'm going to try an astro travelogue. First time where I cover some astronomy and give you a little taste of the area that I've been. You know, I'm really thankful to have a son who's not only amazing, but he's taken me to some really amazing places. And he took me to New Zealand 2 years in a row, a place where I never even thought that I'd be in my lifetime. and yet I was there. So I'm going to talk about both of those visits in order because I took two different telescopes. And I hope you enjoy it. Maybe I should turn that on. There we go. So New Zealand consists of a North Island and a South Island, where North Island where most of the people live, and then a South Island, plus about 600 smaller islands. Its most populous cities are Auckland, and the capital is Wellington, and both of those are on the North Island. Polynesians first settled in New Zealand in the 13th and 14th centuries, and they developed a distinctive Maori culture. And most signs in New Zealand are both in English and Maori. And the Maori name for New Zealand is Aotearoa. Over 76% of the population is in the North Island, and the rest on the South Island. The North Island is flatter, it's more fertile, it's warmer, and has most of the economic centers. The South Island, which is where I spent all of my time, I've only passed through the North Island. The South Island has the Alps, fjordlands, which are fjords like you see in Norway, Marlborough Sounds, and Marlborough wine country, and much more. But I got to say that North Island is famous for its amazing beaches. I've seen some pictures of some really, really cool beaches there. So here's a light pollution map of the North and South Island, and you can see the population centers pretty easily. The most populous center on the South Island is on the east coast, which is Christchurch. If you remember, they had an earthquake about 10 years or so ago, but they have rebuilt quite nicely. And notice there's a bright spot between the two islands, and I think that's gas burn-off from natural gas on ocean platforms from the Maui gas fields that are over there. So as I said, I've only flown through the North Island, and I've spent about 7 weeks in the South Island. There's yet another pollution map. So back in October of 2024, I heard about a new super portable smart telescope for $350. The C-Star S30 from ZWO, and I've given a talk on that last year, and I'll mention it later when I talk about smart telescopes. They're known for making some really high-end, fine astrophotography cameras. And at under 4 pounds, $350, I decided to order one. It was the first telescope I'd purchased in a decade or probably 2 decades. And the telescope, ordered in October, didn't arrive until January. And that's a photo of a telescope in its case. You could see it's nice and small. Between the time I ordered the telescope and the time it arrived, I got a call from my son asking me if I wanted to go to New Zealand. So he twisted my arm, and I agreed, and now I had a nice telescope that I could just throw into carry-on luggage and take with me and check it out. This is a photo of the telescope sitting on its tripod. I use a photographic tripod, brings it up a little higher, but it's very usable just like that. That arm that swings out, that's actually the telescope part. And it's got a GPS, It's got a camera. It's got everything you need to throw astrophotographs on your telephone, on an app on a phone. There's no eyepieces. In most smart telescopes do not have eyepieces. They have apps. And what they do, to some extent, they'll take 20 or 30-second, 15-second photographs of the sky, and then they'll stack one on top of the other. So you might stack 50, 100, 200 to get a really cool picture. And then you use post-processing to what they call stretch it, to add more vibrance and not put things that weren't there, but just stretch the signal that's there so you can bring the colors out. So I'm not going to be talking much about the hardware. I'm going to be doing a talk on smart telescopes on September 19th, if anyone's interested, comparing that and all that good stuff. I'm really focusing on just my trips to New Zealand. So this was the first picture, and the light really washes out these photos, and I apologize for that. This was first light taken January 23rd from my sidewalk in Wayne. It's the Orion Nebula. Wayne is not a very great dark sky location. It's pretty bad. You can also see that from New Zealand, although it's upside down. This is 105 stacked images, which is a 35 minutes total integration. Okay, so here's yet another pollution map of the area where I was. I was in Wanaka. It looks bright, but it's really not that bright, and the light falls off very quickly. This is Queensland, which is the another big town there. This is about 10 steps from where I did my astrophotography. It's my temporary backyard overlooking Lake Wanaka. Just everywhere you turn in New Zealand is just beautiful. I couldn't believe how gorgeous that land was and how friendly the people were. So astronomers rate the darkness of a sky by Bortle. So Bortle 1 is as dark as it gets. That's like New Mexico dark, middle of Africa dark. And then all the way up to 9, which is New York City dark or light. I estimated this site around Bortle 3. For comparison, Jenny Jump is about a Bortle 5, and Wayne is about a Bortle 7.5. So that just gives you an idea. It's a lot darker, and some parts right around Wanaka are about a Bortle 2. So the first trip wasn't planned around astronomy at all. I just kind of showed up. We arrived there 10 days between a full moon, and full moons are not great for astrophotography. New moons are, like we're going to have tonight. We're close enough to a new moon to get the effect of it. But I still had great opportunities for astrophotography. This is the first object I imaged. It's a globular cluster known as Omega Centauri, or Caldwell 80. It's located about 1,700 light years from us, right? So a telescope is like a time machine. If you see something that's 1,700 light years away, that means it took the light 1,700 years to get to you, and you're looking at the object as how it looked 1,700 years ago, not today. That's why astronomers try to see deeper and deeper into the universe, because if they can look at a galaxy 13 billion light years away, they're looking very close to the Big Bang, and so they can study galaxy formation by using their telescopes as time machines. This is the largest known globular cluster of the 150 or so that circle around, that orbit around our galactic center. Its diameter is about 150 light years, and at a magnitude of positive 3.9, it's a naked eye object from where I was. And it takes up a lot of space. It takes up the same amount of sky space as a new moon, as a full moon. Actually, it takes up a little more than that. This cluster contains up to 10 million stars, which is just mind-blowing. That's 10 times more massive than a typical globular cluster, and 4 million times the mass of our sun. And also, unlike a typical globular cluster, this has stars of varying ages. Usually globular clusters have a lot of ancient stars. This one has a nice demographic there. And Omega Centauri contains so much variety and is so much different than your average globular cluster, including housing what they think is an intermediate mass black hole. they think it's so unique that it might be the remnant core of a dwarf galaxy that our Milky Way gobbled up billions of years ago. It's a very cool object for me to start my observing with. This was taken on March 5th, 2025, with 55 20-second exposures. Here's another image of Omega Centauri taken March 15th, just one day past the full moon. I only took 31 frames for a total of 10 minutes. And as you can see, even with all this light pollution coming in, that's a pretty cool picture for a $350 telescope. Edmund Halley, by the way, was the first person to classify this globular as a non-stellar object back in 1677. This is Caldwell 92, an emission nebula, better known as the Carina Nebula. It's about 7,500 light years away from us, and at the heart of this nebula is Eta Carina, a system of at least 2 stars. The largest is Eta Carina A. It's about 100 times the mass of the Sun and 5 million times as luminous as our Sun. And although our galaxy is home to hundreds of billions of stars, there's only tens of stars that are in the same range as Eta Carina. And this was taken on March 6th. This is one of my favorite open star clusters. Whereas most globular clusters have a lot of old stars, open clusters have a lot of new stars. They're usually still sitting in the gas cloud from which they were formed. You know, gas starts to fall in on itself, the gravity pulls it together, and as it gets tighter, it gets hotter until it starts to fuse hydrogen into helium. Then it lights up. And then at some point, maybe 10 million years later, the pressure of the gravity is balanced out by the outward pressure of the nuclear fusion, and the star reaches what they call hydrostatic equilibrium, and it stays like that for most of its life, like our Sun. Our Sun's about 4.5 billion years under hydrostatic equilibrium. It's got another 5 to go before it burns all of its hydrogen out. So this is a jewel box. It's an open cluster about 6,500 light years away in the constellation Crux, the Southern Cross. The stars are held together by gravity, so they are gravitationally attracted, just like the globulars are. But over time, gravitational tugs from other clusters and other objects will pull these stars together and apart, and they'll just disperse. This is a cropped image, so you can see the jewel box a little better. This is 2 images of the same object. It's C103, the Tarantula Nebula, one of the few nebulas that we can see outside of our galaxy. It's a beautiful diffuse nebula in the constellation Dorado, and it's within the Large Magellanic Cloud. I'll call it LMC from now on, so I don't have to twist my tongue. It's a dwarf galaxy and a satellite to the Milky Way. It's very close. It's a naked eye object from Wanaka. It's just amazing going out there and seeing it, not only seeing objects I never saw before, but seeing like a Large Magellanic Cloud naked eye, and even the that big globular cluster Omega Centauri, naked eye. It's amazing. So the image on the left is only 100 seconds of data. I realized after taking it that I wanted to reposition it. So I repositioned the image, and then I took a stack of 37 frames for a total of 12 minutes on the right. So when you see nebula, most of them are in our galaxy, but the LMC is so close, you can actually see a nebula. And this area is pumping out stars. It's a star factory. Right up here, there's some brand new, fresh stars that have burnt out a hole for themselves in that gas, and they're illuminating the inside of that Tarantula Nebula. Very cool. This is another beauty from down under. It's hard to see. You can also see this one from North America. So it's not particular to the southern hemisphere. It's called the Rosette Nebula, and there's an open cluster in the middle that was born out of the Rosette Nebula, and that's known as the satellite cluster, sitting in that donut hole. The Rosette Nebula is also known as Caldwell 49. It's a H3, a hydrogen 2 region located at one end of the molecular cloud in the constellation Monoceros. The satellite cluster, known as C50, was formed from the nebula's matter and contains hundreds of young stars, and it's about 5,200 light years away from us. And it's about 65 light years across. So it takes 65 light years to go across that object. Unbelievable. And this was taken on March 7th of 2005. 208 stacked images for a total of 70 minutes. So that's a longer exposure. That was over an hour worth of data to make that. Some of the guys here, they produce images that take them 10, 20, 30 hours worth of data. By using mounts that track the Earth's rotation, they can do that in 3 and 5 minute exposures, which I did in my second trip. But with these small telescopes, they just move. You get you can get too much rotation on the image. It's not an equatorial mount. Although now they have software to make it equatorial mounts, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having something really simple that you can set up and take pictures. So if you take 15 and 20-second exposures, which all of these are, you can see you can get some pretty good results. It's a great way to break into the hobby. We're kind of in the golden age of astrophotography. I started in the film age, and the difference, I know I sound like a dinosaur, but the difference this makes using electronics and stacking images and Photoshop, it's just amazing. And if Elon Musk can keep the number of satellites under 1 million, maybe we can still continue to take astrophotographs. We do have ways of dealing with that. If you get if you're taking 3-minute exposures, you can take the one with the satellite out and just stack all the rest of them. And I'm sure later on they'll have AI that'll do a better job of erasing those lines. Right now it looks too hokey. You just take the slide out. So that brings us to our second trip, March of 2026. For about 4 weeks I was there. I planned this trip so we would travel for 2 weeks, starting just before the full moon, and go down the west coast and end up Oh, I'm sorry. I got one more from the last trip, and I don't want to miss this one. This is a galaxy called Omega Centaurus A. It's in the galaxy Centaurus, and it's very cool. Caldwell 77, about 11 million light years away from us, and it's classified as an elliptical galaxy. It's believed that this galaxy is a result of a collision of 2 galaxies. There's a close-up of it. I love that dust lane that goes across. I'm shocked that a little telescope with a 30 millimeter aperture can catch that. It's the closest active galaxy to us, meaning that there's a central supermassive black hole in the middle of this galaxy, and it's gobbling up leftover cosmic debris and emitting bursts of radio, X-ray, gamma ray, all kinds of radiation. That's what an active galaxy. This is the closest one to us. The galaxy is about 60,000 light years wide, which is a little more over half the size of our Milky Way. Our Milky Way is about 105,000 light years across. Again, as I said, I love the dust lane. Makes it one of my favorites. So now we're in March 2026. And as I said, I planned it so we would hit it before the full moon. Full moon is not great for astrophotography because it has a lot of light to the sky. And I would get to Wanaka about a week before the new moon, which is a great time. And so I'd have like a week and a half, 2 weeks of dark skies, as long as I don't have clouds, to photograph. But first we did a travel. We landed here in Blenheim, and very picturesque Marlborough Sounds. This is great wine country as well. And then we traveled to Tasman Park, Abel Tasman Park. We went all the way out to this point, and then we came down and went all the way down this coast and ended up back in Wanaka, which is way down here. So that was a trip. 2 weeks of travel, and then 2 weeks of hanging out at the house, taking astro photographs and watching our grandkids. So there's wine country. At our first Airbnb, we really lucked out. We had the best hosts ever. They were an amazing couple. They had an active farm with all kinds of critters and sheep. They grew their own olives, and they had an olive oil business. He worked in the wine industry for about 20 years, so he gave me some great advice on the wineries in the area. It was just a really cool, relaxing time. Highly recommended. And then we went to Abel Tasman National Park, which is an amazing national park. It's a bit out of the way. We took a 1.5-hour water taxi to an area where we hiked 7 miles, and we got to see Split Apple Rock, one of the park's signature sites. And we walked through lush rainforest, lots of hills. This is just a typical view from the hike we took. And at the end of the hike, on the other side of where we were, that's the beach we got to wait for our water taxi on. It's a stunning place. Amazing water, super blue, mountains all over the places. We loved it. The night of the 7-mile hike, there was a full moon. March 3rd was the night of the full moon. It was also the night of a total lunar eclipse. And one of the only places on the planet you could see the whole eclipse from start to finish was New Zealand. Back here at home, you could see the start of the eclipse at around 4 a.m. So it was a washout as far as being back in the States. But I was so exhausted from the hike, I fell asleep. I could barely move. And luckily, I was able to get myself outside just before midnight, and totality was at 12:33 on March 4th. So I did make it. There we go. That's the moon just before totality. Going, gone. And there's the blood moon. An exciting night. I am so glad I got myself out of bed. I'm such a slacker. You have no idea what a feat that was. But, because of the moon's alignment, there's not going to be another total eclipse until New Year's Eve of 2028. And we won't be able to see it here in the States. The next one we can see in the States is June 26th of 2029, which is unusual for such a long period of time. 3 years we've got to wait. But we can see that one from start to finish as long as we've got a night like this and not a typical Jersey astronomy night. So that's Abel Tasman. You got the wine country here. I came up Kaiteri Terry's where we stayed. We took the water taxi, and this whole area is the national park. And then we drove all the way up to Collingwood, and you had to take a tour. In order to go out to this place called Farewell Spit, we had to pay for a tour. It's the only way you can get out there. And so from Collingwood, we took a 4-wheel drive vehicle all the way out there. We wanted to see what the spit was like, but we also wanted to see a colony of nesting gannets. That was our objective. And that was the very next day after the 7-mile hike. And then the next day after that, we just came back down and we drove out to the West Coast and then all the way down the West Coast. That's what a Farewell Spit gannet looks like. Pretty cool dude. And that's the gannet colony. And look at the mountains behind it. I mean, it's just everywhere you look, it's just amazing scenery. And back to another light pollution map. Yeah. When you look at Wanaka over here, it looks like I decided to do astronomy right in the middle of a headlight. But notice that the center of town, which is not where I was, is only Bortle 5. And Jenny Jump here is Bortle 5. And I drive an hour just to do astronomy here. So even in the center of town, it's as good as this is. And you can see by the colors, it drops off fast. And I'm actually a ways away, so I'm like around 2 to 3, probably a solid Bortle 3. The blob to the south is Queenstown. If I ever get to return, though, I've been here, but not. Where is it? Here it is. Lake Tikapoo. this area right here. And right here you can see this is Bortle 1 right here. Bortle 2, Bortle 3, right in town. It's an amazing town for astronomy. Highly recommended. It's pretty cool. The population is about 558 a couple of years ago. I doubt it's over 1,000. It's a popular tourist destination though, but the town has strict ordinances on lighting and light pollution to keep it a dark site. And in 2012, 1,100,000 acres around Teekapoo was declared the Arac Mackenzie International Dark Sky Reserve by the International Dark Sky Association. So this is serious. These people are serious about keeping it a dark sky. It's encouraging to see a whole town get into that, use the right kind of lighting to keep light pollution down. I applaud them. This is Mount John University Observatory right at Lake Teekapoo, and you could see the Alps in the back there, the New Zealand Alps. It's located just north of town. But also the Dark Sky Project runs stargazing tour from their own observatory. So there's another observatory, and they've won a number of tourism awards. They even have, if you sign up to do stargazing and you have some clouds, they've got an indoor like planetarium type show that they'll do for you. But it's amazing observing. And that observatory houses an 18-inch restored Brashear refractor built in 1894 and donated to them by the University of Pennsylvania. It's quite an instrument. I mean, refractors weigh a lot, and an 18-inch refractor, that's an 18-inch opening. Just amazing. And the Instagram shot that everybody goes for at Lake Teekapoo is the Church of the Good Shepherd on the lake with the Milky Way right behind it. It's amazing what Instagram has done to some beautiful sites. Everybody wants to get that shot, and so it gets crazy. But that area is, and there's also reflections on the lake that you can get of the Milky Way. Just such a cool place. I would love to spend a week there. But back to Lake Wanaka. This is the one scenery shot I want to share with you before I get to my photos. I've got to include it. We took a 1-hour water taxi out to the island Muwaho, and then we hiked about 800 feet up, and we got to this lake. So this is a lake on an island inside of a lake, and I tried to get that infinity pool angle. I think it came out pretty good. You can't tell that you're 800 feet up, but you're 800 feet up above the Lake Wanaka when you're at this lake. There were some kids jumping off the rocks and swimming in there. And if you'll notice, there's 2 tiny islands in this lake. So if one of those kids were to climb on one of those islands, they would be standing on an island in a lake, on an island in a lake, on an island in the ocean. That makes my brain hurt just to think about it. But a very cool spot and a really nice walk. So we're back to my temporary backyard, back at where I do my astrophotography in Wanaka for 2 weeks. You can see Rob Roy Glacier on the left there. Very nice hike. I did that the year before. And also right in that area of the Moon and Orion set. So that's a nice spot. So you saw my astro rig from last year. This is what I lugged. This is what I lugged over this year. 30 pounds compared to 2. And airline weight restrictions were just crazy. I was so nervous. I had to put stuff in checked luggage, and I'm not crazy about that. In this picture, you can also see the only source of real light pollution I had. There's some houses here, but other than that, there's nothing. And this hill is a great shade. There's another view of the scope. You can see the electronic autofocus that I had to carry in my vest because I was really playing with weight restrictions. A 56 millimeter Williams Optics Ultra Cat 56, a ZWO camera. For any gearheads, it's an ASI 2600 MC Air that I use. So it had the controller, and I got that camera for the trip. And if anyone remembers February, it was all like single-digit weather, so I did not have a chance to test it out. And that's a dangerous thing to do, is to go with equipment you have not used before. And so wasn't a problem. I had a little problem polar aligning the first time. Polar aligning is where you get the axis of rotation of this mat lined up with the south celestial pole so that we can turn the whole rig at the same time the Earth does. And then instead of taking 20-second exposures, I took 3-minute and 5-minute exposures because I was tracking the Earth with the AM3 mount. But the first night I was a little frustrated after 10 minutes. I got it down under 5 minutes later, but it was like 10 minutes. I took a deep cleansing breath, and I turned around and I saw this. I couldn't believe it. That was going on behind me while I was bent over the telescope trying to polar align. So needless to say, it took about an hour before I polar aligned again. You know, our eyes are like cameras with 1/30th second shutter speeds. And so to the naked eye, all I could see is like 2 pink pillars. And I'm in the habit now, whenever I think I'm seeing an aurora, I take out my iPhone, and in the night mode, it's a 3-second exposure. So that's what this is. This is my iPhone, 3-second exposure. And I looked on the screen and I said, whoa, unbelievable. There's another picture. And it was best when I turned around, and then over the half hour, it started to die down again. This one I like because this is you could probably hardly see it, but this smudge is a large Magellanic Cloud and the small Magellanic Cloud right there in the shot. Very cool. It looks a lot better on my computer screen, but it was just an amazing night. I can't believe the stuff I stumbled onto, because I didn't even really plan for the lunar eclipse. I found out about it as I was on the plane. I said, oh yeah, there's a lunar eclipse, because it was a non-event in the States, so nobody was talking about it. This is just a quick photo I took with my Fuji X-T5, just a regular camera. I just wanted to take a shot. I wasn't really there to take shots with that camera, but it's kind of cool because this is Orion upside down, because we're in the southern hemisphere. So he's standing on his head, and here's the belt and the sword. There's Jupiter, Pollux and Castor, Gemini. So that was a pretty cool scene. But you know, being in Australia, you're driving on the wrong side of the road. I drove about 1,000 miles on the wrong side of the road. You pull over to a dark site, and half the stuff I don't know because I don't ever see it. And the other stuff that I do see is upside down. The seasons are upside down, right? This is like September. That March is like September in the southern hemisphere. So they were just coming out of summertime. So the seasons are upside down. At least they speak English. If they spoke Hungarian there, I think I would have gone belly up. It would have just been too much change. I'm just thankful I did 1,000 miles on the wrong side of the road without going too crazy. There's a snapshot of the Milky Way. Again, I just put it on the tripod. I think I took like a 20-second exposure. This is the Carina Nebula I keep talking about. All kinds of great. This is the coal sack, which is kind of neat. It's just a big dark cloud that obscures the stuff behind it. Okay, I started the Astro sessions by taking photos of some old friends. This is the Carina Nebula, and what a shot. I have not done any post-processing to this. The camera did a little internally, but I just haven't had the time to sit down and really stretch the colors. It'll be even more vibrant, but that's just, to me, it's amazing. It's one of the brightest nebula in the night sky. As you saw, it really stuck out even on that. I could see that naked eye. It's about 8,000 light years distance. And this is a massive stellar nursery. just like the Orion and the Eagle nebulas are that we see in the northern hemisphere. And this is just something called plate solving. I can get my computer to draw in the different objects that I'm looking at. It's very helpful. Here's Omega Centauri again that we saw last year. The star field is much richer than in the C-star photograph, and we're only talking a difference between 30 centimeters, a 30 millimeter, and 56 millimeter aperture. So it's not that much bigger, but the exposures are longer, and they're guided. So it does make a difference. Here's Centaurus A again, also known as Caldwell 77. We saw a lower resolution image of that. This I just did today for kicks. I took last year's image on the right from the C-star and this year's image, and I just rotated the C-star real quick to put it in about the same. It's a meaningless comparison, but it just kind of shows you the difference of the star fields between those two. Is it worth $5,000 extra? Don't ask my wife. That's like the cartoon I just saw. A woman standing by her husband, and she says, "Do these jeans make me look fat?" And the husband says, "If I tell you that, if I say something, do you promise not to yell at me?" And she said, "Yes, of course." And he said, "I bought a new telescope." That's me for sure. This is an object, I'm really not sure what it is yet. I just stuck it up there because I thought it looked pretty. And to put it in context, there's a whole lot of stars here. I don't even know if it has a designation. If anyone knows watching online, let me know if you know what it is. I'm not sure what it is. To put it in context, there's our old favorite Carina Nebula. So it's right off within the same field of view of the Carina Nebula, but I'm not sure what that is. Here's the jewel box again. This time with star cluster NGC 4852 on the lower right. You can see a little star cluster on the right there, and then Beta Crux on the lower left, which is a star, and then in the upper left is Tau Crux. So I was surprised by the dark nebulosity that came up there. I didn't realize that there was dark nebulosity. I didn't see it in my pictures from last year, and it didn't really show up until I was a few exposures in, which is kind of strange. You'd think that the darkness would show up first, but that was pretty interesting. When astronomers name stars, they use the Greek alphabet. So alpha is the brightest star, beta is the second star, and then they add the constellation. So Beta Crux is the second brightest star in the Southern Cross, and that's the star on the lower left. And on that upper left, that's the 19th brightest star in the constellation. Let's see how we're doing for time here. Okay. This is a closer look at the jewel box and its companion. You can see the cluster on the bottom right a little better as well. Love that jewel box. This is NGC 6397, about 7,800 light years away, which makes it one of the closest globular clusters to Earth. It's in the constellation Ara, Caldwell 86. So it's one of the closest. Here's the Carina Nebula again with NGC 3293 off to the right. That's known as the GEM cluster. It's another cluster of young stars that have just been born recently, last millions of years. It's an open cluster in Carina containing more than 100 stars brighter than the 14th magnitude. So very cool. You can see you need more power to resolve that cluster for sure. And the image could use a little cropping as well. Here's an image we see from both hemispheres. It's in the constellation of Orion. Anyone know? Given this telltale, anyone know what that is? I know it's really hard to see between the light and 100 yards away. It's the Horsehead Nebula, along with the Flame Nebula, which is the brownish nebula. Um, it can use a little post-processing, which I'll get to one of these days. But I'm still very happy with the way this image came out. I just I love it. I've always wanted to get a decent photo, and that's really the first really good image I took of that. And you know, there's millions of images of the Horsehead Nebula, but there's something about sitting under the sky, collecting the data and processing it yourself that just it's more of a feeling than opening up a coffee table book and seeing what the Hubble telescope did. It's just amazing to do it. I'm hooked forever. I didn't use any filters on any of these images. H-alpha images will bring out red a lot of times, but they'll also turn the Flame Nebula red sometimes and then have to be corrected later on. So I just love the contrast between the brown and the red and that horse sitting there. This is a nebula I've always wanted to image. It's the Rho Ophiuchi. Ophiuchi. I can't pronounce that worth nothing. Cloud complex. You can see it in both hemispheres. Matter of fact, that bright star on the bottom right is Antares, which is the heart of Scorpius. And all through the summer, if you look that way, you'll see Sagittarius and you'll see Scorpius. So we're looking at an area that we can see from here now. It'll benefit from some more post-processing to bring out even more of the colors, but I just couldn't believe how colorful that came. In the bottom right, as I said, is Antares, which means rival of Mars, because it's a red supergiant. And when you look at it, you can see the red in Antares. It does look angry. It sits at the heart of the constellation Scorpius. It's 700 times larger and 10,000 times brighter than our star. Pretty bright. Directly above Antares is M4. It's another globular cluster. It's known as the Spider Globular Cluster. It was discovered in 1745 and resides in Scorpius as well. Its apparent magnitude is 10.8, and it's approximately 6,000 light years away. It's the closest globular. It pushes out that other globular for the title of the closest globular to our planet. And it's 1.8 light years across. Its age is estimated to be 12.2 billion years old, right? So compare that with 13.6 for our galaxy and a 13.8 for the universe. But that may be under revision. Come listen to my James Webb Space Telescope talk in 2 months, and we'll talk about how it's upturning some of the theories that we have about this universe. It's kind of interesting. The two main clouds that we see, the gas clouds, are IC 4604 on the left and 4605 on the bottom. And again, this whole area is a vast stellar nursery, one of the closest stellar nurseries to Earth. And I started imaging this at 2 a.m. on March 24th, and I shut the shutter at 4:49. And I was a little tired. I don't go to sleep when I do these things. I stay up and just have a good time under the sky, under the stars. But we're talking about almost 3 hours of data, the longest exposure that I've done. Again, next to some of these guys that do 20, 30 hours of data, it's nothing. But for me, 3 hours of data is quite a commitment. They were all 3-minute exposures on top of each other. So once again, as I finished that up, I turned around. And this time, I don't know if you can see that, but that is a train of hikers at 5 a.m. Trying to catch the sunrise at Rob Roy Peak, because someone posted a great Instagram shot, and now everybody has got to go up there. So there's my son did it a day or two later. He did it with his buddies. So there's the train to go up to see sunrise. There's the crowd waiting for their wilderness shots. Okay, uh, at least they're orderly, which is more than I can say for some of the Instagram crowds you see in some of the cities. Um, so that's the big photo op out there. But obviously it's just gorgeous. You see the Alps in the background and Lake Wanaka. It's just it is a stunning view, and it is a really hard hike. You need a couple hours to get there. Okay, so that's a little taste of New Zealand. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed the trip. And thank you.
All right. Thank you, Walt, so much for another great talk. So we're going to be getting into the question and answer session. But before that, because I saw a number of you sneaking in the middle, and you thought you could escape the safety briefing, but alas, it is unescapable. That being said, if anyone here needs to use the restroom, that is the porta potty in back. It is big, it is blue, it is illuminated by red for ease of finding when it gets dark. It will get dark. It is a state forest. So when we go to leave, we are using our headlights because we prefer not having the medical bills of getting run over. This is not a real-life game of Frogger. We also have a little museum and gift shop area. Feel free to check that out. I do have a volunteer in there. Each of these little sheds you saw when you were parking or coming in, each houses its own telescope. The ones with the roof rolled off are open and have a volunteer manning them. Feel free to try and stump them with any questions you have about space and astronomy. It's always fun to see what either they actually know or they'll try and make up. So, that being said, do fact check. But that's true of any point in your life. As we are wandering around and it does get dark, we might be wanting to use flashlights or our cell phones to navigate so we don't trip over our own feet, like I am very wont to do. We do try and keep those lights pointed towards the ground because it is no fun suddenly getting a 100,000 lumen Amazon special directly to your retina. So let's avoid that. Also, speaking of the roll-off sheds, we are doing a fundraiser currently. We are going to build another observatory to house the 25-inch telescope donated from Alan Midkiff, who founded Northwest Jersey Amateur Astronomers, one of our member clubs. So we are looking to break ground on that observatory this year. So anyone who has donated, thank you. Anyone who will donate, also thank you. That being said, it is a free program, so donations are not expected, but always appreciated. With that, how question and answer session is going to work. For people here, I've been staring at a screen, therefore my night vision is gone to... It's just gone. So you're going to raise your hand and kind of wave it about until I bring you the microphone. Because if you have a question and you're brave enough to ask it, chances are someone that also has a similar question and might not be as brave enough to answer that. Online people, you have it easy. You just get to type in chat and I say it. So to start us off, I'm going to start us off with the first online question, which was, how did you polar align your telescope? Because normally polar aligning is needed for computerized scopes that track.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This fancy schmancy camera of mine, which has an ASI Air in it, it does plate solving. So what plate solving is it has the entire map of a star map, north and southern hemisphere. And what it does is I point it as best I can to where I think the South Pole is, and it takes a picture. And then it turns 60 degrees and takes another picture. And it knows what should be in that second picture 60 degrees away. And if it's not, very simply, it tells me this needs to go up 1.5 degrees, or this needs to go right or left 35 minutes, and so it tells me, and I have to get, the first day I had to get used to the adjustments, but after that, it got to be pretty easy. The southern, before that, polar alignment used to be like aiming a laser at the North Star. It was one method. The other is you have a special reticle, because the Polaris, the North Star, is not exactly at the North Star, and so you have to kind of align just off of it. But in the southern hemisphere, there's nothing. One clever guy came up with attaching a cell phone looking down at the North Pole and then aligning his southern pole rig by looking through the Earth to the North Pole and aligning that way. And with a wide angle lens, you get close enough. But this plate solving stuff it's the next level. It makes it too easy. You used to have to learn the stars, and now it's like, okay, I just turn this knob, and it makes it a lot easier. And polar aligning has always been something I dreaded. Just not a lot of fun. And you have to do it if you want to take good pictures.
There's a reason I chose not to do astrophotography, and my telescope of choice is a Dobsonian style, which is just plop the base down, put the optic tube on base, and go, because there's only left, right, up, and down. There's no aligning or anything. There's just, can you actually find it? All right. So, any questions out here? I just hear crickets, which is good.
I see a question right up front.
Perfect.
He said that scientists are trying find stuff 13 billion light years away, so they can find stuff in the Big Bang. How does that work?
Well, as technology gets better and better, we replaced the Hubble telescope with the James Webb Space Telescope. And not only that, but the Hubble telescope was mostly visual light. There's a whole spectrum of energy that we can look at. And what we can see with our eyes, visible light, is only the tiny little sliver of the whole electromagnetic spectrum. And just far enough away from visual light is infrared light. And infrared light cuts through dust. And so we can see further because we have bigger optics. And with the infrared, we can see through dust. And the other thing is the whole universe is expanding. And so the farther away a star is, the faster it's moving away from us. And as it moves away from us, its light is shifted to the red. It's like a train. When you hear a train leaving you, you hear the sound change, right? It goes, meow. Or that's a race car, I guess. But
I have never heard a train go,
yeah,
meow.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's NASCAR. But the reason why it's getting longer is because as the car leaves you, the sound waves are getting stretched out. And so the wavelength of the same sound is getting longer and longer. So when you're looking out, stars, 10, 13 billion light years away, they're moving so fast that all their light is shifted into the infrared. And so even though if you were standing next to it, you could see it visibly, from where we are, we need to see into infrared just to see the object. And so the James Webb Space Telescope does that for us, and has really been getting scientists scratching their head as far as their old theories. There's a lot of new stuff under revision, and I'm going to be talking about that in August. I forget the date, but in August I'm going to do a annual update of what James Webb has found. That might be a good one for you to check out. A lot of discoveries.
All right. This online one is actually
welcome.
an excellent follow-up to that. Is there any way to extrapolate what things in space would actually look like today, or do we just need to wait until the future to figure out what actually happened?
Yes and no. It depends on the object. I'll give you an example. The Eagle Nebula is a very a famous picture that the Hubble took. It has these 3 pillars of gas, and it's lit up by some very young hot stars in a cluster nearby, and that's about 7,500. Around 7,000 light years from here. And judging by the makeup of the stars, the scientists postulated that went supernova 6,500 years ago. And if it did, it would have blown those pillars away. So we see the pillars in our Hubble photographs, but they're saying that there was probably a supernova, and opinions divided on that. And if so, those pillars don't even exist. Problem is, it's going to take us 500 years to find out for sure. And by then, you know, who knows?
All right. Any other questions out here? Perfect. I see one all the way back there. You put your hand down. I lost you.
What are your top 3 favorite spots in United States for night sky viewing?
Oh boy. If I had an unlimited budget, they'd all be in the Southwest, right? They'd be in New Mexico. But practically speaking, for me, I like the Adirondacks. I like going up to Vermont, and there are some nice dark sites in Pennsylvania. One's called Cherry Springs, but you don't have to go there. There's some nice in the Catskills. There's some nice Bortle 2 skies. So basically, you're looking in the mountains. I'm going to a place called Speculator. It's probably a Bortle 3, but it's nice and it's got accommodations nearby, so it makes astrophotography easy. So yeah, campgrounds are fun. If you just put light pollution map, there's a number of servers that'll serve up maps, and just look and you'll see where the light drops off, and look for Bortle 3, Bortle 2, and those are amazing skies around here. You can hit those within an hour and a half, 2-hour drive, 3 or 4 hour drive. It'll get you to a very nice place.
Also, PSA, if you look up the, of course, now that I want to say it, I forget the exact name, but there is the Night Sky Association who deal with light pollution and whatnot. If you're looking to help combat light pollution, they have all sorts of suggestions on light fixtures, because you don't have to not have a light fixture. You just need the correct light fixture or light fixtures on timers. And it's a great resource to look at. I just saw a moth or something. Sorry. It's been a long day, and apparently moths are the new squirrels. At least a couple people agree. But again, light pollution is becoming more and more of a problem, especially as we get into LEDs, which anyone who's driven has agreed that the brightness of LEDs are getting a little bit extreme. So we need to start taking action to reduce some of the harmful effects of overly bright lights everywhere. So with that, we're going to go into our next online question, which is, you mentioned a Caldwell number in a couple of times. What list is that? Because normally we know of the Messier list and the NGC.
Caldwell is another very popular catalog. Google it, and you'll see that there are a lot of objects in there. NGC, anything with a Caldwell number usually has an NGC number. There was a great talk done at a Northeast Astronomy conference a couple of months ago by an author of a book who cataloged all the catalogs and compared them. But yeah, Caldwell is a very popular catalog. You don't have many Messier numbers down in the southern hemisphere, because Charles Messier was a Frenchman, and he put that catalog together because he was a comet hunter, and he wanted to catalog all the blurry things that looked like comets that weren't a comet, and he gave him a Messier number. But being in France, the southern hemisphere stuff was just not on his agenda. So you don't see many Messier numbers unless it's an object that can be seen from both hemispheres. But look into Caldwell. There's a lot of interesting objects there.
All right, another question from out here. And keep in mind, you kind of have to wave it about, because I have no night vision, and as it gets dark, I become very much like the Jurassic Park T-Rex. My vision's entirely based on movement, so as long as you stay still, you just become another shadowy figure in the dark. All right. Our next online question is, would they change the Greek alphabet designation of stars in a constellation, and if one got brighter or dimmer, causing them to be out of order brightness-wise?
It's just listed as a variable star. And, I don't know at what point in its variability that they assign the Greek letter to. But yeah, there
like
are,
if one was alpha, and then apparently it decided, I'm no longer going to be the brightest star. I'm going to be somewhere hanging out in the middle. Would they change the designations of everything?
they
or-
haven't. Betelgeuse was doing that, right? The shoulder of Orion. It was it got dimmer for a while, and they were counting it's going to go supernova, this and that. They didn't change the designation, but they kept an eye on it, and now it's back. Shucks, I was really hoping for a good supernova.
All right. Oh, someone actually had a fun idea. Someone in the audience decided they don't want to speak. They're going to go onto the YouTube channel, make a comment, and you know who you are. I could
I
hear
love
the
it.
laughter. What was the first telescope camera ever used, and what was the model and name?
Oh boy,
Like the first ever, or like his first ever? His first.
oh, my first.
That's a lot easier of a question.
Okay, because the first ones were all plates, were plates, and that's a C Star S30. It's a really, yeah. My first camera was actually a film camera made by Minolta and then Olympus, but yeah, there's even one. There's a dwarf mini that's like $300. That's also very good. Go on YouTube and really just take a look at them and see what you feel like. They're all pretty good. They're between 30 and 35 millimeters. If you went for a C Star 50, that would cost you a little more money. That would be about $600. But it has
And then if you went to Vianis, that's $6,000.
yeah, and
so-
then you get the disease. That's the problem. But yeah, in the under $400 range, the C Star S30 is good. The dwarf and the dwarf mini are all ZWO is the brand. But if you put C Star 30, you Google that, it'll pop right up.
honestly, if you just put C Star, it'll come up with
Yeah.
a whole lineup of products. That being said, before you ever make a telescope purchase, my biggest suggestion to everyone is go to your local club, go look through as many telescopes as you can, because chances are their public programs are free. Go find your local friend who has a telescope. Some of the telescopes, some libraries even have loaner telescope programs. Use your free resources, look through telescopes before you spend the money, because wouldn't that be a bummer? You go spend, even if you're only spending, I'm using air quotes here, $400. That's $400 that if you didn't like, then you have a telescope you need to rehome via cloudy nights or whatnot. Speaking of that, there are also places like Cloudy Nights where you can find used. Hey guys, how about let's not run around? It is getting dark and I don't want to see you trip and fall. Like I said, look through the telescopes. If you don't mind use, a lot of people, as they find bigger, better telescopes or are getting out of the hobby, they look for ways to rehome, and you can often get a used telescope for a better price, but it still works good as new. So,
Especially
use your
something
free
with like a
options.
C Star, because people trade up.
Yes, because much like I started with a small tabletop Dobsonian that I could carry in one hand, I have now traded up to an 8-inch Dobsonian that I cannot carry in one hand. It takes a couple trips. So use those free resources. Use the telescopes before you buy them. All right, I see another question right here.
I also wonder, is what other Greek letters do they use?
What other Greek letters do they use?
Well, they use the whole Greek alphabet, but that only gets you to what, 24. and then they use numbers and different designations. Good question, because yeah, a lot of constellations they just have some star. When you get dimmer and dimmer stars, like past 14th magnitude and stuff, even before you hit 14th magnitude, there's just so many stars. They have very long designations, like H2053-72, or if there's an unusual star, it's got a different, they get some crazy numbers for these things.
All right, online people, do get in any last minute questions you have. I would hate to miss your question. If you happen to think of a question later, don't worry. We do save these presentations on YouTube, so do feel free to check them out on and ask the questions in the comments on our saved YouTube. Our next online question, which is, how did you decide what gear to put in check luggage and what gear to keep on you?
Oh, I hate this. It was strictly weight. My mount weighed 9 pounds, and you fly and there's a 7 kilogram weight limit. So I took the most delicate. I took my camera and my telescope and brought that on carry-on, and I put my tripod and my mount in my checked, and I put my autofocus. I went out and I bought one of these vests that have like 12 pockets, and so I had other astronaut. I had filters and 2-pound autofocuser and a camera lens. It got a little crazy, but yeah, that's what I did.
All right. Any other questions out here? Bueller. All right. So, knowing if you have a question, you're going to raise your hand and wave it about like you just don't care. I want to thank everyone who has joined us not only here, but on Twitch and YouTube. Like I said, do feel free, if you can't make it up here, join us there. Hit those like, follow, subscribe, all those free actions. It helps us reach a greater audience to share our love of space science and astronomy. If you're feeling extra generous, like I said, we are doing a fundraiser, and we would not be opposed to you dropping the paid options or hitting up any of the random donation drugs here. All right, so it looks like we are done with questions for tonight. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Surprisingly, Walt, you have not brought in that many clouds just yet. It looks like you have broken your curse or passed it off to someone else that has yet to be determined.
Yeah, I've got a rep.
With that, clear skies, good seeing, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks a lot.